And we're back here on WrestleRant. I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and today we're breaking down the 1992 installment of Survivor Series as seen on the WWE Network. Now, this was the first Survivor Series show not to feature the first ever singles match in Survivor Series history. That came the year prior in 1991. But it was the first installment of the pay-per-view to be largely dominated by just singles matches and tag team matches. This show only featured just one elimination tag team match, traditional Survivor Series style. 4-on-4, closer to the main event. But other than that, this show is mostly singles matches, and that's kind of the way that it would become in the years to come. I mean, in other shows, we would have more Survivor Series matches as opposed to just one. But it was weird for the Survivor Series format to go from every match in the show to being tag team to just a title match and all tag team in 91. And then on this show, we only have one elimination tag team match, and everything else was singles matches or a tag team match. In the case of Savage and Perfect versus Ramon and Flair, but still kind of a weird switch up. But it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter too much. It was still a fine show, and we'll get into it right now. So the opener was the Head Shrinkers taking on the team of High Energy, quickly squashing the team of Owen Hart and Coco Beware. This was right after they debuted, so a fine showing for them. And Fatu would, of course, go on to become Rikishi in the WWE. I'm pretty sure it was Fatu, right? I think it was Fatu of the Head Shrinkers, but fine match. I don't know if I would have kicked off the show with a squash match. I probably would have. I mean, then again, there really weren't many other matches on this show that screamed like amazing in ring from like a technical standpoint. Fine squash and put them over nicely. After that, a nightstick on a pole match between Big Boss Man and Nails. Obviously, as the title stipulation suggests, very, very gimmicky. Nails was like the former, what do you even call it? The former prisoner of Big Boss Man when he was in charge of the asylum or the jail cell, whatever the hell it was. It was very something that you would see straight out of a TV show, pretty much. The nightstick on a pole match really did not. The nightstick really didn't come into play too much until the end. So kind of a dumb match. I thought it was stupid, not terrible, but the stipulation going in, you knew it was going to be very, very gimmicky, and that's exactly what it was. So it really wasn't anything I expected. It really wasn't anything I didn't expect coming in. So after that, we had Tatanka versus Rick Martel. Pretty basic match. I don't know if I would have had it go as long as it did at 11 minutes. I thought it was a good match, but mostly on offense for the most part was Rick Martel with it, just rest holds after rest hold after rest hold. And then Tatanka came back and won the match. So very basic in that respect. Tatanka had just debuted and was going on an undefeated streak for a while. So it made sense to give him the win here, obviously. But the match itself was really nothing exciting. It was very basic with the heel being on offense for a majority of the matchup and then Tatanka coming back and winning. So really nothing too special there. After that, our first tag team match of the night, not elimination tag team, just a standard tag team match, with Randy Savage and Mr. Perfect taking on Razor Ramon and Ric Flair. Of course, this was the whole storyline going into this, which I loved, was that Mr. Perfect was breaking away from Ric Flair, kind of standing up for himself, and said, no, I'm not going to have any of your shit anymore. I'm going to team with Savage, take on you and a partner at Survivor Series. Razor Ramon had just debuted, so he really wasn't all that, he didn't really stand out too much here as he probably should have. He played his role well, but he was not the worker that Flair, Savage, and Perfect were. So a good match. I was kind of disappointed by the DQ ending. I mean, Savage and Perfect won via DQ, and they probably just wanted to keep the feud alive between Perfect and Flair, while also furthering the feud between Savage and Flair for the meantime. And Ramon got introduced to a pretty marquee level matchup so early in his WWE career, which would bode well for the remainder of his run with the company. But yeah, I thought it was a good match, kind of a disappointing ending, which was understandable. I was kind of hoping for more, but still a solid tag team match, and I liked the story they were telling, like I mentioned before, with Savage, Perfect, and Ric Flair. So after that, we had Yokozuna quickly squashing Virgil. Basically what it was, the match was over 3-4 minutes, so really nothing new there. Yokozuna had just debuted like a month or two before this, so they were just giving him, squash guys, and pretty much just sat on Virgil to give himself the victory. So a very dominant pay-per-view debut for Yokozuna. After that, our first and only Survivor Series elimination traditional tag team match in the entire show, 4-on-4. The Nasty Boys and the Natural Disasters taking on Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers. It was okay. I mean, I don't know if I would have had this match be the elimination tag team match. I probably would have extended Savage and Perfect to an elimination tag team match and given them partners, given the feud at hand in that matchup. But this match was okay, and I was kind of surprised the Nasty Boys had won. It was, I would have probably given the win to either all four members or just the Natural Disasters, the Nasty Boys were never and still aren't anything special to me. I mean, they were a fine gimmick, but I always thought they were kind of overrated. So yeah, a fine match. I probably would have given the win to the heel team, specifically DiBiase and or IRS. So kind of a weird result, and the match was okay. Not a great elimination tag team match though. After that, we had a coffin match between the Undertaker and Kamala. And basically what you would expect, at only 5 minutes, they really, really rushed it, and Kamala spent most of the match running away from Undertaker, and between two huge guys, it was going to be boring, it was going to be dull, it was not going to be great, really, not very well wrestled, and that's exactly what this match was. It was called a coffin match, not a casket match, and I think there might be a difference there considering Undertaker had to first pin Kamala before he rolled him into the casket, or the coffin, or whatever. So he rolled him in the coffin, he nailed it shut, and that was when he won the match. That was when the bell rung. So I was kind of confused about that, and I guess a coffin match and casket matches are two different things, because a coffin and a casket are two different things. So yeah, a very sloppy match, and thank God it only lasted 5 minutes, but it was another one of those cases where they needed, Taker needed something to do, so they just fed Kamala to Taker as his next big opponent, and they figured because it was two big guys that they would fare well against one another, and they didn't. It was a very, not a very good match at all. They served its purpose. They did the stipulation. It was what it was. And we get to the main event for the WWF Championship. Bret Hart defending against Shawn Michaels, and at this time, Shawn Michaels was the Intercontinental Champion, although his title was not up for grabs. So a very good match. This match almost got nearly 30 minutes. So a very, very good main event between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Not the type of match that we would see from them in the years to come. 4 years later at WrestleMania 12, at Survivor Series, 4 years later. The same exact match, but the same exact competitors, the same exact scenario going in with Bret Hart being a champion. Michaels was an IC champion in 1997, but it's funny that we had the same match, at the same event, 5 years later in 97, just under completely different circumstances. But yeah, it was a really good match. Again, if you're expecting the kind of match they would deliver in 97 and at WrestleMania in 96, you're going to be pretty disappointed because it was, Michaels was just starting out as a singles guy, and I thought it was a great match considering how little experience he had as a singles guy at that period in time. And Bret Hart had just won the championship like a month earlier, so it didn't really feel like a main event level match, although I know the WWE title was on the line. Michaels had just debuted in WWE as a singles guy anyway, And then Bret Hart had just won the WWF Championship. But there weren't really any other matches on this show that I probably would have given the main event slot to. That in addition to the fact that WWE was really pushing that new generation narrative with Bret Hart and Michaels and Razor Ramon and all these other guys. Yokozuna had debuted, the Head Shrinker, so a lot of fresh faces on this show. This was not a great show, but on the whole anyway, getting to my overall thoughts on the event here, it wasn't a great show, but we got a lot of new fresh faces in the Head Shrinkers, Yokozuna, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, all these other guys, kind of coming up and, winning. Tatanka had won, Head Shrinkers won, Yokozuna won, Bret Hart, who had just debuted who was kind of kicking off his reign as WWE Champion, had won his title match in the main event. And a very good main event, too. So on the whole, I don't know if I would watch this entire show. It introduces the new generation, is a proper introduction to that new era in wrestling for the WWE. From an in-ring standpoint, this match was not great at all. The tag team match with Savage, Perfect, Ramon, and Flair was pretty good, and a great story to tell with it to boot. And the main event was also awesome, but everything else was kind of mediocre to bland or bad. So I would only watch the tag team match, and specifically the main event between Bret Hart and Michaels, to kind of get a taste, a preview of what was to come in the years that followed between the Hitman and the Heartbreak Kid. So be sure to check it out on the network if you would like, only for those two matches. Otherwise, it's really not all that necessary, but you can hold out until my review of Survivor Series 1993, which should be up here tomorrow on the channel, so be sure to check it out. But in the meantime, in between time, you guys can follow me on Twitter at WrestleRant. On Facebook, be sure to give the page an old thumbs up at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. And last but not least, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to check out my website at nextairwrestling.net for full reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, Impact, NXT, Ring of Honor, and everything else in between. So, of course, guys, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.